Hi, Andrew from SACS, and welcome to video number 11 in our 11 video sequence on how to create the optimum corporate culture. This one's about leadership development. How do we cause our leaders to develop to be optimum in terms of leading corporate culture? It's often said that what gets measured gets done, and nothing could be truer in respect of leadership. So 360-degree feedback process is a way of finding out how the person feels about their own leadership, how their leader feels about their leadership, and how other people, other cohorts in the organisation feel about their leadership. 360-degree feedback is an exercise in controlled subjectivity, if you want to put it that way. We use measurement instruments that are designed to accurately measure the effectiveness of 10 characteristics of leadership that a person has, and to identify their style of leadership through that process. So here's a typical description of a 360-degree feedback process. Firstly, you'll need to decide on some rater cohorts. So self-ratings are really common and leader ratings are really common. By the way, the self and leader ratings are the ones that are declared openly. So when you get a leader score, you will know exactly who that score is. Now, the other three, peers, direct reports and indirect reports, are typically groups of more than 3 people, and so they will have an average score. So the comments of the individuals are anonymous. In 360-degree feedback, you have an option of using standard questions or custom questions or both. So SACS has 30 questions that measure 10 leadership characteristics, which I explain in more detail in module 10 of this 11 video series. But the leadership characteristics that we're measuring are really about the ability to create high levels of engagement amongst the workforce. So staff that report to you, your leader, your peers, and they're things like the degree to which a person is able to prove themselves to be supportive in the way that they lead, the degree to which they cause people to learn, the degree to which they're optimistic, positive, empowering, but also some stuff about accountability. Are they making it clear to the people that they work with what the accepted standards of behavior are and the accepted standards of performance, and then making sure that those standards are met. So those are 30 standard questions, but it's also possible to write custom questions. And so the custom questions can be about anything that the organisation thinks is very important. So people have asked us to put questions in there about how the person's performing in respect of a particular methodology that the organisation has, maybe specialist skills like project management or something like that. That kind of thing can be really valuable. But with only 30 standard questions, you're talking about an exercise that takes, 5 to 10 minutes max to fill in, depending on how many comments people write. So the process is that we would typically project plan and pre-engage people. So project planning is where you decide the questions and you decide who's going to rate and all of those kinds of things. And it's a good idea to cause people to be heavily engaged in that from a communication point of view. But typically we would also run some kind of a workshop to explain to the people who are being rated exactly what the process is and what the methodology is and what ethics will be in this process and so forth. So one of the things that we find is that when this is done well, you end up with very high response rates because the people themselves are into it. They believe that it's a worthwhile thing to do. And usually what we'd also do is create a short video for the raters so that they understand the ethical framework and that this is something that's meant to enhance leadership rather than to find fault with people or something of that nature. So you run a 360-degree feedback survey. We also typically psych assess at the same time, and we debrief people on their results and create an individual development plan. Psychometric assessment and 360-degree feedback go hand in hand beautifully. The psychometric assessment is measuring internal innate characteristics that tend not to change much over the course of a person's life. And you can see how it influences their 360-degree feedback. Now, the self-awareness that comes from this helps a person to learn, well, this is why I feel like this, but maybe I have to